it is useful to know, about tibial torsions and anteverted hips and retroverted hips and all those things. Like, I dedicated all that stuff to my brain, wanting to preemptively take care of people. And then come to find out, a lot of those diagnostics don't do what we thought they did. I think there are over 200 diagnostic tests for the shoulder. One of them does the thing that they thought it did. One.
Hey, fitness fans, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and I'm coming at you from Whitefish, Montana, in my upstairs studio with my studio dog, River, who's doing what he does best, sleeping and occasionally licking himself. And this is episode number 112. So I talked to Ryan Whited. Ryan is the co-founder, I believe, along with his wife, of Paragon Athletics in Flagstaff, Arizona. Sounds like an amazing place, by the way. It's on my short list of places to go visit and live for a while. So what is Ryan up to? He's been in the game for a long time. He's been in the trenches. He works with a lot of high-level athletes, and as well as, your everyday Joes and Janes, right? He's formerly a sponsored rock climber, professional rock climber. He works with a lot of endurance and rock climbers at his gym. That's not necessarily what makes Ryan unique. And you can tell from this conversation, he's a very smart person. He's very intuitive in the work he does, but he's bridging the gap between physical therapy and fitness training, for lack of a better term. He'll explain it in this interview. And the cool thing about it, the thing I love, right? He's disrupting. And it's one of my favorite things. He's ruffling feathers. He's not scared to go out there and ruffle some feathers and change the way things are viewed upon. Maybe if you're a physical therapist, you won't like some of this. It's possible. Maybe if you're a fitness trainer, you will like a lot of it, right? So without further ado, let's get into it. Before I do, I want to read a review from Ben Reuter at one of our sister podcasts, Moving to Live. So if you don't know Ben, he has an amazing podcast. It's all about breaking down knowledge silos within the fitness and health and wellness industries. And he does a great job. Very similar missions to what we have here, with his own unique style and flavor. And Ben writes, if you are in the fitness world, this podcast keeps you abreast of what interesting professionals are doing. It is a must subscribe. Ben, thank you for the review. You all, if you haven't gone to iTunes or wherever you're listening to this and drop a review and subscribe to this, I would greatly appreciate it. It takes 2 minutes and it goes such a long way. So that being said, thanks again, Ben Reuter of Moving to Live. And let's get on to the podcast episode number 112 with Ryan Whited of Paragon Athletics. Enjoy. And we're live. Ryan Whited, welcome back. Well, I say welcome back because you're on the Fitness Blitz, but this is your first time in the Future of Fitness. But yeah, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I'm excited. You do a lot of really, really cool things. Your perspective, your background, your story. I love all of it. And I'm excited to have you here. And thanks, Ben Reuter, by the way, from Moving to Live to podcast for recommending you and connecting us. So let's do this, man. Let's kick it off with a little bit of your background, your biography, and some of your story.
Okay. I am a trainer in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm also a lifelong athlete. I've been a sponsored athlete for nearly 20 years. I am the son of a racehorse jockey, so a professional athlete, which is always fascinating to people.
Yeah.
So I grew up understanding seasonal lifestyle of athletics. We move 6 times a year to accommodate the race schedule, and it's funny. My entire childhood was built around athletics. So, and I've been fascinated with athletics my entire life. So I remember watching Bill Kazmaier and Bruce Lee and Mark Allen and all those folks. Like as a kid, I remember seeing my first Ironman and watching Mark Allen cross the line, and then watching folks crawl for the rest of the day. Yeah, and I've always been moved by athletics. So yeah. Currently,
you're sponsored. Where were you sponsored as?
Climber.
Climber. Cool.
Yeah. My wife and I are both boulders. We started Paragon Athletics about officially on the books. We started almost 10 years ago. We work with outdoor athletes primarily. And then we also nowadays do a lot of what folks would consider therapy. We call it training, but a lot of folks would consider it therapy, working with folks through musculoskeletal issues primarily.
Awesome. And I think, one of the big topic that we're going to tackle so people can take a listen and know that you should stay tuned on this one is that, bridging that gap between training and treatment, right? And what the future of that looks like, because you're doing it, you're pushing forward, you're, figuratively and I'm sure literally sometimes the tip of the spear, right?
Yeah.
In this area. And it's a place that a lot of fitness professionals want to go. It's where I believe fitness and health and medical and medicine will all merge, hopefully into one thing in the future. So it's stick around and understand this, people, because it's really, really important. And Ryan's doing the work right now. So you have a really interesting story because you lived in a van, right?
We did. Yeah. And it's funny is that's our retirement plan. we're going back there. So yeah, as soon as we finish up with this mission of riding the ship, I think my wife and I are looking to get back into the van and climbing as much as possible again.
Awesome. We're as of today's January 4th, my wife and I think I told you we're building out a van right now.
Yeah.
Should be ready in February. So
maybe
our retirement plan. Are you going to get a van or are you going to keep the old,
no. Right? At this point, so we have a 1984 Westphalia.
Okay.
And at this point, it's the most modern vehicle we own. So it has, we put a new motor in it, all new electronics, and it runs off of solar. And at this point, it looks like an old hippie van, but it's actually kind of modernized. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. My wife is a rock climber and, more traditional. She does trad climbing and, I'm very, very novice, but I did pick up a couple key terms. And one of them that I really love is dirt bagging.
Yeah.
Which is essentially like
we are dirt bags. Yeah. Ben Ritter mentioned he kind of apologized before he said that. And I was like, no, man, that's a badge. So I wear that proudly.
Yeah, my wife, she has a group of I think it's 5 or 6 women. They're all rock climbers and they don't meet up as much as they used to. They used to do 120 days a year or something ridiculous. And they call themselves the Dirt Barbies. Right?
Classy.
Anyway, let's get a little bit more into your story, man. So how, you started this gym, you're living out of a van and then it started evolving. How did you kind of work your way into what you're doing now? What's the background?
So the impetus for our current state was an injury that I went through. It was probably around 13 years ago now. Betsy and I were climbing. We moved back to Arkansas for a little bit, and I was looking really forward to revisiting some old climbs that I hadn't wrapped up. And so got there, and I started developing sort of, I described it as like a headache in my shoulder. So it took me most of a year, and I had been training people for years at that point. So people came to me for advice on, health, wellness, and everything. And I felt outfitted to answer those questions. And then after that, going through that process, I realized I wanted to know a lot more to take care of people better. And that was really the impetus. So I ended up finding somebody that did help me, but it did take most of a year. It was a very frustrating process. We live on movement. It's what makes us happy. So it pushed me in this direction to know as much as I could possibly know to take very good care of our athletes. So I ended up going to courses. I would go to courses that were designed for medical professionals, for therapists and docs. And I would always get that look like, why are you in this room? And then they would double check with me if I understood everything. are you sure you understand this? And I was like, yeah, thank you.
Patting you on the head.
Yeah, totally.
Little trainer, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Thank you. Which, I mean, I understand. It definitely, I got the vibe every once in a while where people felt like I was cutting in line, education wise. So, but that wasn't my intention. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm still not trying to offend anybody. I'm still just trying to take care of people, care of athletes. So I would go to those courses. I bought textbooks. My wife and I had like $10 at the time. So every time I would want to fly across the country and learn about histological changes in connective tissue, she was like, "Are you sure that this is pertinent to what we do?" And, 8 years ago, I wasn't sure how pertinent it was. I just knew I wanted to be the best at what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Now that you see the shift that we do in the strength and conditioning world and in the therapy world, it absolutely was pertinent, and we happen to be cutting edge, in my opinion. So it's been quite a process, and in the last 2 years, we have really settled into being comfortable about how we do things, knowing we have people a lot of times when they come here, they don't understand the level of knowledge that the trainers have here. So we've gotten really confident about where we are and what we're doing at this point. So we've gone through the learning process, and we made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and
sure.
But at this point, we are really comfortable doing what we do and how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what do you do?
So a lot of my day now, I don't do as many classes as I used to do. We have earned the reputation locally and even outside of Flagstaff now. I've had people that come to visit me from out of town and even out of state to help people through musculoskeletal issues, like I said. Sometimes, very often actually, those folks have been passed through the medical system. And we have case after case after case of these scenarios where people are like, well, I've been seeing people for 6 years for, iliotibial band syndrome. I'm like, why in the world would anybody have to see somebody that long for iliotibial band syndrome? Mm. And thankfully, we've had a lot of success stories. And it's earned us a reputation for being those people that can help folks get over the hump. So probably 50% of my day is helping those people, those athletes. And then the other half is just training folks. So what would look more like, typical training. So, but we don't see a difference in the two. And we don't think they should be seen as different things. And we think therapists are moving the same direction. There you see like strength therapists, the prehab guys. You see all of these folks that are, trying to do what we've been doing for 10 years. Yeah. So you see them all moving this direction, and we think it's going to be great for everybody. Yeah. It's definitely a healthier way. The British Journal of Sports Medicine, I think I shared that link with you.
Yeah, this morning.
Yeah, that they over the last year, all of a sudden, even those folks are saying, should we reframe this whole concept of treatment? And yes, we should, in our opinion, and that's what we've been doing for quite a while at this point.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, the experience at Paragon at your gym, your facility, it's most people probably come in because they're slightly broken. I'm going to use myself as an example because I think I'm a good one. I'm 42, right? Yeah. Athlete my whole life. Some shit just doesn't work like it used to work. Left ankle is, I call it my shitty left ankle. My left shoulder is just kind of weaker than the right. It doesn't have quite as much mobility as it used to. I do get IT band syndrome occasionally if I'm, overdoing it. I come into your facility, and also I like to stay very active,
Yeah.
ski 60, 70 days a year, do whatever I can in the summer when I have time. I do it all. And that's really important to me. Right. But
yeah,
I'm not quite at the level where I'm like, well, I don't know if I should see a physical therapist. Right. I don't want to go through that whole process because I've been there,
right.
people who are super injured. Right.
Yeah,
Am I your ideal client, or someone you can really help? Or do you even go with people who are more broken than me?
Oh no, at this point I've worked with, sometimes I look back and think, how the hell did I end up in this, like working with this population? um, but I'm thankful that I am, because we do have really good outcomes. So I have worked with people with dystonia and all kinds of other issues at this point. Most of who I work with are musculoskeletal, like, ankles that are dinged up and shoulders that are dinged up, and just help people through that process. So we think coaching people through that process is much better than sequestering them into therapy. Even psychologically, it's a lot better. If Kelly started some of this ball rolling, and it was right about the time. It was actually just a few years before that I had this notion as well. And he worked at it from the PT side into the strength and conditioning side, and I worked at it from the strength and conditioning side toward the therapy side. And now the two are kind of coalescing. And so he started it, and I appreciate his model. But in some ways, not to take away from what Kelly's done, because I think it's amazing what he's done.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But I feel like the fix-it model can be not the healthiest approach to our bodies, to tell you the truth. We've decided, we started using the term, so you're not a garage, you're a garden. And it's just a better way to look at your health. Rather than fixing yourself, you're tending to yourself, you're taking care of yourself. It's more of a process of care rather than, looking at your health as something that is broken and constantly needs fixing, like an old broken down car. It's more of like, it rained really hard last night and I probably lost some tomatoes, but I'm going to plant more tomatoes because I grow tomatoes. So, it's just a better way to look at our health, psychologically. So that's kind of how we've been approaching it. And that's how we're a little different than Kelly's version of this too, is, he's an interesting cat. I've taken some of his courses, and he's energetic.
Yeah. He was one of my very first CrossFit coaches in San Francisco.
Oh, was he really?
I told you. Yeah. So I joined another facility, and then I didn't know, no one knew what was going on in 2008 with CrossFit. And I started hearing about, this guy, Kelly, who was doing these weightlifting Wednesdays. So I would go over there and lunch on Wednesdays and get coached by Kelly. And then I heard something, and then he was my PT, which he was doing out of a storage container out of the back of, I can't remember the sports store in San Francisco, but just he was the whole thing was amazingly inexpensive the way he was running it. And I'd imagine the overhead was amazing, but he did really good work. And, he looked at I think he started looking at physical therapy as like towards the form of function. Like, what is this person trying to accomplish? Right. And putting the whole thing in perspective. And then obviously, he started his mobility WOD, and that thing just blew up. And now he works with NFL teams and all that. And so let's keep diving into this, because I think it's, if let's put this in the perspective of like, I'm a personal trainer, right?
Yep.
Maybe I'm a facility owner. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand what Ryan's talking about here, what the vision will look like. What do I start doing to progress to that? Is there specific pieces of education? Is it a mindset? Is it like, it's probably all of it, right?
It is. And, some of the folks, so I was tagged into a conversation and the title of this conversation, it was on Facebook, or the question posed was, what's the difference between training and treatment? I think there were like maybe 10 different therapists on there and one trainer. I was the trainer. So the question was posed by a friend of mine that is a PT. She actually let her license lapse because she was so frustrated with the industry.
Wow.
And that was the impetus for her making that decision, was that conversation. So I let the conversation go for a day, and I thought, I don't know if I want to get into this. Do I? And so
literally sticking your neck out. Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so finally, after a day of comments, I think I in all bolds was like, there is no difference. So, and then there was some comments back. So, and then, I am not trying to offend anybody. I try to say this all the time. I understand the level of education, and that's actually the point that I'm getting to right now, is I understand the level of education that therapists have. They have a doctorate, they have advanced degrees, and so so after a few days of this conversation, I think it went on for like 6 days, they realized, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. And
was this in a forum, like a Facebook, Twitter?
It was Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
where all the craziness really.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And so I didn't want to, some sort of rant. I actually wanted the conversation. So, which it was great. I think everybody came away. They actually said, we really don't know what to make of you. And I was like, well, that's fine, because I know what to make of me. So, but back to your question, there is a lot of education that you have to have. Mm-hmm. And I've just done the footwork that most trainers aren't going to do. The other side of that is therapists don't have that training either. So they don't have the strength conditioning side of this. It's more complicated. The curriculum is like 20 years out of date. So, and not to be critical. So please, I don't want to get like a bunch of messages to me where people are like, "What? You're out of your lane, bud."
Well, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I get messages every week where people are offended, and I'm like, I am not trying to offend anybody. So I just think it's time to come to the table and rethink this in a big, radical way to better care for people. So that to your question, not every trainer should be doing what we're doing, and not every therapist should be doing what we're doing either. So it's a coalescence. It's a new thing, and it's coming around. But you should take everything that people say with a grain of salt if you see it on the internet. So yeah.
Well, I mean, anytime. Okay, one of the worst things we can do is look at something and do it away because that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
Right? Not stopping and critically thinking about things because shit's changing too fast. I mean, right now things are changing so fast in every aspect of our lives, faster than it's ever been in the history of humankind. Right? Yeah. So you got to really step back and be like, okay, now we'll compare it to 1 month ago, we have this many more tools. We have this much more education. Look at education itself.
Yeah.
Right. My wife learned how to ski through YouTube.
Right.
Right. I mean, now look at the end product. Is that would she be is she a more qualified skier if she had a ski coach?
Yeah.
Or someone who is certified? No, she skis great. right?
Uh-huh.
And that's just a small example, but education is differing now.
It's totally different.
I mean, it's everywhere. The amount of information, and the biggest thing we can do, and the biggest shift, in my opinion, is not necessarily, it's like, well, how much can you memorize, right? Or how much, because the information's out there.
Yeah.
It's at your fingertips at any point you want it, right?
Yeah.
It's how you critically think, right? It's how you look at all the information and take that intuition and that critical thinking, put it all together and solve problems.
Yeah.
That's the one. And I want to, like, people who haven't checked out your website, you have an amazing, if you really want to know, get inside what Ryan does and his team, go to his website, check out the video they have as a promo video. I watched it before your first interview. I was like, just seeing like what you're doing with people. Like, I've never seen those type of movements. I've never seen things like that. Like, what the hell is going on here? And then I interview, I'm like, okay, now it's starting to make sense. He's just doing things differently,
right,
than everybody else. And he's looking at things from a different point of view. And that's going to scare some people. So
absolutely.
I think
it bugs people all the time.
Comments you get, I think the better work you're probably doing.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. What's really funny is we've had quite a few folks that are therapists that have trained with us. And then they have gone and started their own businesses that like literally mirror our business. Like, well, that's flattery, you know? So it's, you can tell everybody's making this move, this direction. So, and there's people's egos get a little ruffled and whatever, but at the end of the day, I think this is going to be such a better form of care. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, are you saying that there's egos in the fitness and health industries?
No.
What?
No.
Oh, nonsense. Give us some more examples, because I know it's tough for people unless they can see you working. But maybe give us another example of like a typical client or a client that you would work with where you really brought the two together, right? Training and treatment. Like, and what would it look like?
So I don't know if you know who Rob Carr is. He's one of our he's an endurance athlete. He does skimo. He is a pretty renowned ultra runner, and he's on the North Face team. Last year, he was in a race. He took a misstep. It was a muddy course. He was within the last, I think, 1 or 2 miles of the finish line. Hyperextended his knee and suffered essentially what's called a kissing injury. So he knocked out a good portion of articular cartilage from his knee. Went through a surgery that was pretty novel / experimental, and he did his entire recovery with us. So his first day was with us to his last day. So it was funny because now I know his surgeon, and his surgeon actually works with us now. But before he did, Rob said, I just want to work with these people. And his surgeon, every time I would see him, he was like, he can't do squats. And I was like, he can't even weight bear. Why do you keep thinking I'm going to ask him to do squats? But I think it's because people just think of a trainer as, these people that can only do these very linear things, and all they do is super simplistic things. They don't understand, proprioception and, how tissue lays down and scars and time it takes. But some of us out there have dedicated their mind to knowing those things. So Rob did his total rehab with us. Last year, he had a very successful year, and his surgeon told him that we actually had a conversation and went back and forth on whether we should actually share this with Rob. And finally, his surgeon decided, and I decided that we should, is that it was very likely a career-ending injury. And, Rob's a professional athlete. He's one of the best ever. And thankfully he had a crazy year last year. He was very successful. And it was a long, long road. But I went to every meeting with him, with a surgeon, and there's not really a protocol for his surgery because it is so novel. So we just kind of would go and have a meeting with a surgeon, get a direction to go. And then it was funny. I started sending him videos just to confirm and so he didn't know I was having him do squats. So, yeah. And so that's kind of the folks that we work with now. And, I've had quite a few folks, like professional climbers, that have come to us that have said, you have to have shoulder surgery or you won't climb at this level again.
Mm-hmm.
And we will say, you're years out from this injury. Like, there's no hurry. Let's see if we can get your function back up and reduce your pain and go from there. Mm-hmm. And then come to find out, they end up climbing as hard or harder than they've ever climbed, without any surgical intervention. So, and there's definitely, I don't want to, there's a time for surgical interventions, So we work closely with quite a few surgeons here in town. So I'm not down on surgery or anything. Just oftentimes we can find a different way through, a less invasive.
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of our people.
Yeah. It's awesome. And I do feel that surgery begets more surgery quite often. And, I had 2010, I had a couple of herniated 2 discs in my back, just through a combination of, just being at that age, 31, 32, a lot of activity, and then getting into, the sport of weightlifting, at the age of 31. Right. And then, I heard these 2 discs. I turned to a lot of people. The first person I actually called was Kelly. And I'm like, well, what do I do? And he recommended me to a physical therapist that, I could work with locally. So I was no longer in San Francisco. And, I got a series of 3 injections. And then at that point, it just wasn't, he gave me enough pain tolerance to deal with physical therapy. Right. Mm-hmm. And then, after 3 injections, I was like, well, this just ain't working, So I'm like, okay, well, I guess my only option was going under the knife. Right.
Yeah.
And then, like a freaking miracle, this guy, Dr. Eric Goodman, walks into my gym, and he's if you guys haven't met, you'd be great conversation, I'm sure. But he started foundation training, which was, chiropractor. And, he started showing me these moves and things that I can do on a daily basis, and correcting the movement and, working with the fascia, all these different things. And then 3 months later, man, I was lifting just as heavy, if not heavier than I was before.
Yeah, totally.
I think what's interesting is that I ask this question all the time to people who care about the fitness industry. People are in it. And how do we get to the point where we are respected, valued, as much as some of professions like dentistry or physical therapists, or, you name it, right? Just name a respected and valued profession, right? Attorneys, right? Well, respected, valued, right? Sorry, attorneys. But you get that question. I think what I see from my perspective is what you're doing is heading in that direction.
Absolutely.
Which is awesome.
So that is one of the problems that we see is people don't understand. When I say that physical therapy, when there's no difference between therapy and training, concerning musculoskeletal, it confuses people. And they can't unsee the model, that's been in front of them for 30 years. So, for instance, I'll get little notes all the time with people that I'm working with, and from their therapist. So there ends up being this like power grab too, where people are like, oh, no, I'm the authority on this. And I'm like, well, just calm down. Okay. So I'll get little notes. People will bring them to me and they're like, well, I'm not supposed to use my arm today. And I'm like, all right, how come? And so, like my shoulder hurts. Like, was there anything sinister there? And they're like, no, there's nothing, no sarcoma or anything like that. There's nothing horribly wrong with their shoulder. It just hurts. But I get a note, from a therapist, and they're like, yeah, he shouldn't move his arm. I'm like, well, it's his arm, and data, the research says really moving it is probably the best thing to do. So it ends up being this like weird little power struggle too, which is horrible. and then the people end up, the people that I'm trying to take care of and the people they're trying to take care of get caught in the middle of it, and they don't know who to believe, who to trust.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being this really frustrating position. And I try to be polite in those situations and tactful. I'm definitely not going to badmouth anybody. And so I just try to take care of those people in the best way I can when that happens. So, but absolutely, people don't understand that there's not a difference, and it confuses them when I say that, and that's what we're trying to change. So, yeah.
That's a very, very common scenario that you just outlined there. And I think anybody who's in the fitness profession for more than a year has come across that scenario where working with somebody who has an injury, whether it be chronic or acute, and their doctor says, well, they need to stop all movement.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, fuck, really?
Right.
What is that going to, well, let's just, how about I just go swim? How about you go swim? Can you do that? Right. And then you're battling against well, what's the minimal thing that you get away with here and have this person continue to move and enjoy their life and, all these things. And I'm a dreamer, maybe I'm stupid, but I always think about what if we all worked in tandem? What if the medical professionals saw us as an extension of the healing process? Be like, okay, here's what I've seen. Here's the, whatever, the x-rays, the MRIs, my analysis. And now let's work with a fitness and health professional to do the actual work. Right.
Yeah.
But with a feedback loop of some sort. Right. And I'm guessing, my hope, because I'm really into the tech of fitness, is that technology is going to help bridge that gap in whether it's real-time biometrics or, the database systems or how analytics are done, whatever it is, I'm hoping.
Yeah. Well, so personally, so I'm a part of quite a few therapy groups, and I was invited to a few of those, thankfully. So I've managed to keep the pulse on both ends, on the strength conditioning end and on the therapy end. So, and then initially, when I went and learned all the diagnostics and all those little tools, I was like, well, initially, I preemptively, I want to do these, have insight to an injury. So I would say, if you can't do this with your shoulder, then let's work on that so you don't, develop subacromial impingement. So I wanted to learn all that stuff that I could apply it preemptively and take care of people preemptively. That was my whole idea.
Yeah.
So I did that. I learned all these ridiculous things. I have so much strange biomechanical knowledge in my head at this point that is useful. It is useful to know, about tibial torsions and anteverted hips and retroverted hips and all those things. I dedicated all that stuff to my brain, wanting to preemptively take care of people. And then come to find out, a lot of those diagnostics don't do what we thought they did. So I just did a shoulder course in Chicago, and I think there are over 200 diagnostic tests for the shoulder. So 200 just for the shoulder. And one of them does the thing that they thought it did. One. So, and so what's happening is there is no gap between those worlds. We incidentally thought we were treating this thing. We weren't. What we were doing was desensitizing people accidentally and then building up their robustness. We were just training them. So we thought we were affecting these little detailed things, but most often we weren't. We were just like, oh yeah, lift your arm like that. Does that hurt? Yeah, it does. Okay, how about take it over here for a little bit? How about that? No, it doesn't. How about in a week? Let's come back here. How's that now? It's not as bad. All right. And so we were just incidentally taking people through these movements. And so now what they're saying is oh, we use clusters. We use clusters of incidental movements, and that helps. But it's still just incidental movements. Sure, some some guy, named Nears, like years ago, decided to put his name on that, but it's still this, you can't, it's not making it a real thing still. You're just lifting your arm. And so we've realized a lot of these diagnostics. There was another one that came out about 3 weeks ago, maybe a little longer, 4 weeks ago, where over 800 of them were used and scrutinized. Less than 4% did what they thought it did.
Wow. What?
So you're like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we treating?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not treating anything.
Like therapeutic masturbation. Yeah. There's nothing. Yeah. It's just...
So at this point, you're like, okay, I think we should have a big conversation about this. And not to take away anybody's authority, certainly not to take away their care. All of these I absolutely believe that these folks are trying to take care of people, and they do. But they're not affecting the things that they think they're affecting, if that makes any sense. So,
yeah.
So, in a lot of, most of the research says how to make change is through mechanical load exercise. Like literally, that's how to make change. So if that's what we're doing, then we should definitely have another conversation. Yeah. And so with the not manual therapies, that's another topic. With the manipulations, so those have been shown to not do what we thought they did. So you do these like segmental manipulations, and 20 years ago they showed that that you're not doing what you think you're doing. You can't do that. So. Yeah. So we're at a place where these worlds are coming together, and they're going to come together pretty quickly. And that's why you see like everybody kind of making a move for, this ground.
Yeah.
So, but we've thankfully like been headed down this path for some years now. So, and I think it's why our outcomes are so good, is because we've actually demystified a lot of that stuff. And so when people come to see us, it's a much more simple approach, and they're coming to a gym. So we've realized also that like you cognitively bias people with language. So if you're diagnosed, you are likely to adopt those symptoms.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So we've realized, right. Yeah. So when people go to a gym, they're like, "Oh, I've been sick." You're like, "Well, you're training now." So, and psychologically, it's a big shift, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to get so many messages.
Yeah, it's all right, man. So are you educating people?
How so?
Learn? And what you're learning, what you're doing.
Yes, we actually
like internships or online. What are you doing to get this out?
We have developed a program. It's not wrapped up yet, but it's close. And I've actually worked. I probably shouldn't use their names, but I've worked with a couple therapists, and they think that we have definitely a good thing. And I have one friend that's a therapist out of West Point that's doing research right now, and therapist friend, I think. And we had a conversation the other night. He happened to be in town, and he was like, you guys are doing a really cool thing. And in the next few years, it'll probably be what it looks like, So we are developing our program. He's eager for us to finish that up and get it rolling.
What's that going to look like? Is it going to be like an online course? Is it going to be an internship where people come work with you? What is it?
Most likely it'll be an online course. So there's a big shift in the therapy world where it's moving toward biopsychosocial. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. It's a little buzzy term in the therapy world. So we're coming away from the structuralist view of health and pain. and we're moving toward this biopsychosocial movement. That basically means that we're more complex than we realized. So pain science has been one of the things we looked into a few years ago, and it's really the thing that is undoing so much, because we realize very often people have pain with no explanation. So it is the thing that's really kind of shaken things up. And we try to educate our folks on pain and give them insight. We tell them, when it's okay to go forward, to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So we are that biopsychosocial model that people are looking to create right now. We just have been doing it for some years at this point. Yeah. So, and it's working. We absolutely see it working in our community. People, it's why we are busy helping people, because folks tend to feel better when they come here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a cool, exciting time.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. I mean, as you know, I'm not on the floor or in the trenches or whatever you want to say, not anymore. But I was for a decade and working with people. Uh-huh. And, when I hear you speak and talk about this transition, this shift, this change of trajectory, uh-huh. I get excited. It fills me with pride. Right.
For sure.
I'm not, if I can do what Ryan's doing, or even a fraction of it, and I can start helping people in this truly impactful way, mm-hmm. right? Where I'm not just handcuffed to squats, press, pull, hinge, right. Where, my programming changes, the way I can, and it also removes fear. And it just, I guess what I'm getting at, it would give me a lot of pride to be that type of health, wellness, fitness professional, right?
Right.
I feel I deserve respect. And
absolutely.
That's a big thing. Why a lot of, the average personal trainer, I believe, last time I checked, lasts 8 years. And that's a really, I think the large majority of them fall out after 3.
Yeah.
Right? Because, they get into them, they're like, well, is this all I can do? And this is all I get paid? Well, this sucks, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go get my corporate job, right?
Yeah, totally.
No one respects me. I don't get paid. And that's, I'm generalizing, but it's true. It's a large percentage of the population in the fitness industry. And I see this type of thing. And it just, it's a weird sensation. And I think I'm not the only one. If people are listening who are fitness professional, they're probably I'm going to stand a little taller, right?
Yeah.
If
for sure.
I'm going to demand a little bit more respect because I do really good work. And,
right.
We don't have to stand in the shadows of, the people like the medical profession or physical therapy who, by all means, have done the work. They've done the education.
Yeah.
But we do get poo-pooed on a little.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
I was demeaned the other day. I made a little comment, which I make it a habit of nowadays to make little comments. Because I want to poke the bear and go, hey, let's have this big talk. I want to have the big talk. So the other day I made a comment, and the reply was, you should know your role in the continuum of care. And I was wow. Like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah. So you sleep outside, dog.
Totally. Yeah. And I was like, all right, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So absolutely, we're thought of as the bottom tier at best.
Yeah.
And what the crazy thing is, so somebody gets hurt, right? They have tendonitis. So they have tendonitis, and they're like, oh, I have to go to therapy to fix this. And they go to the therapy, and they come back, and I'm like, so what did you guys do? And they're like, I lifted this thing like this. And oh, so you did an exercise for that muscle.
Yeah.
And that was a load progression, which I am an expert in load progression. It's literally what trainers do, right? So when you realize, oh, that's the same thing that heals you.
Yeah.
You realize, oh, this is not any different. it's mechanical load is the best thing to heal tissue. And if you have non-traumatic musculoskeletal injury, you were either underloaded or overloaded. And the thing that if you're underloaded, you load it. And if you're overloaded, back up a little bit, and then you prepare yourself a little better next time you go to do that event. So yeah. So it's when you start realizing like, hey, we have really over medicalized this and overcomplicated it, then the specialness tends to float away all of a sudden. The secret knowledge quickly dissolves. So, and I think it's better that way, because people, when there's this like air of secret knowledge around that profession, where like, oh yeah, they said I don't breathe very well. And like, what the hell does breathing have to do with your knee? Like, when you take all that like air of mystique away, and you're like, oh no, actually it's just specific exercise, it's not complicated, then it's a new thing, and we just happen to be embodying that new thing. So yeah.
Well, from a global scale, there's this arrogance of humanity that we know more than millions of years of evolution, right? Like, just an example, and we're not dogs, but my dog, he hurts himself. He plays hard. He's an athletic dog, right? And, I don't take him to the vet that often, yet he's 10 years old. He moves great, right? Yeah. He stretches a little bit 5 times a day.
Yeah.
His body seems to just bounce back and heal because he moves.
Right.
He moves. And it's just like, well, the most simple prescription for most people that will heal is like, well, just move. Move.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right?
But this arrogance of like what we've come through in the medical profession or whatever profession maybe, and this is not all, right? This, good doctors, good, bad doctors, whatever. There's just people. But that, no, stop everything and we're going to do this isolated movement and maybe we'll avoid surgery, right? Like,
right.
We've been evolved to heal ourselves if we live the way that we were supposed to live.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah. And it's true. So one of the dangers of this new model is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So we can definitely oversimplify. So as one of the girls that came to see me is a runner. She's young. She was 15. They wanted to do a psoas release on her. So I think this will come back to your point. They wanted to do a psoas release on her. 15 runner, had been in enough pain that that she hadn't been able to run for, I think, a little over a year. So her family came in. Her mom started tearing up. Her dad was obviously distressed. The whole family was. They tried to go on a hike the day before. And they realized, oh, this is going to affect our entire family's, future, because they're an active family. So in her case, she had an anteverted hip, so which means her femoral neck angle is a little different. So it was one of those cases where you do have to realize, okay, knowing some of these specific things is necessary, but it was still, I honestly think if somebody had just loaded her carefully and said, hey, does that hurt? Does this cause your symptoms to come up? Even without knowing what I knew, and they just slowly worked her toward it, she would have been fine. But it was definitely because I knew how to look for those things. It was an advantage. I could get her out of it more quickly. And she'd been in therapy for a year. And I didn't hear from her for a while. And I thought, great, I don't know what happened with her. And so then I got this big long text message about how successful her cross country season was.
Nice.
So we get those messages often.
Yeah.
So coming back to your point is you could probably fix intuitively, fixing quotations, most musculoskeletal conditions, just with good intuition, like, oh yeah, that hurts, so I'm not going to do that for a little bit. Yeah. So how we see what we do is we are merely coaching people through this process. I saw somebody yesterday who actually works in the fitness at a NAU, the local college. For her shoulder, she had come out of therapy and just wasn't back to 100%. She wasn't climbing. She was still in pain. So how I told her the process worked is we're going to give you guidance through this process, but you're going to do all the work, and in a few weeks you'll probably feel quite a bit better. And that's how we see our roles. We're just giving people guidance. We're not fixing anybody. We're not like, we don't have any like mysterious insights. It's just, we say that was too much, do a little less. That was not enough, do a little more. Like she was doing band exercises, and I was like, that ain't gonna do it, girl. Yeah. So she just needed more stimulus, basically. Yeah. So more load. Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, I presume you do, because you're, building a course on it. So you think you can codify this? Do you think you can, or is it too intuitive for you? Is it just the way your brain works? Because that would be, now if I'm listening, I'm just getting my career started in the fitness profession. I'm like, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to fly out to Flagstaff and, I'm going to offer to mop Ryan's floors. Until I can learn as much as I can and then go off and do it on my own. That's literally what I would probably be doing.
Yeah.
But I'm past that, now. I like to, I'm not in the trenches.
Over it.
But no, I'm not over it. I'm over gym ownership. Let's put it
totally.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic. But
yeah.
Do you think you can codify this? I presume you do, because you're doing a course.
Yeah. My friend Kyle, who's the PT at West Point, we were talking about this the other night. He said, man, you have this instinct for this stuff. Right. And it's true. I actually do think that for whatever reason, maybe it's because I've, been an athlete for so long, or for whatever reason, I do have an instinct for it. But I took probably 4 weeks of just like grinding thoughts and trying to create a flow chart, essentially, that would teach people the thought process. I had another friend that wanted to do the same project with us 2 years ago or so, because she saw what we were doing and she was excited. She was like, we need to teach people how to do this. Mm-hmm. And that was what we struggled with a couple of years ago, is how do we teach people this process? And she lives out of town, so it was hard for us to actually develop anything, even with Google Docs and whatnot. So, but at this point, I'm actually really happy with what I came up with. It's a really simple version of like how I go through thoughts with people when I start working with them. So, yeah. And even to the point where when I'm working with somebody that has non-specific low back pain, like the process of that, and what it looks like. And it's funny because half of the people we see are medical professionals. And what I mean by we see, like they're from the hospital, which is hilarious because they get free physical therapy. Yeah. So why the hell are they coming to see us? You know what I mean? Yeah. So the other day I saw a lady who's a nurse practitioner, and she came in, and we were talked for probably 15 minutes before we even started the session. And I paused for a second, and I was like, they call this history in your profession. I call it just talking. Like, so, and it's true. When people come in, we're not just taking a history with them. We're like, so when did your symptoms start occurring? We're actually like talking to them. So it's a much more authentic version of the process, and she took it pretty well and started laughing. So that's the old school version of taking patient history.
Yeah. Well, I think, everyone's looking for a new way. If you've been in either system, whether it be medical, health, fitness, it's not, just look around. It's not effectively working, whatever it is. And I think everyone's looking for a different, better way. People are looking for ways to revolutionize it. I know in my gut after, being a facility owner for a long time and working with people for so long that I'm like, there's just a better way. And we just don't, it's just not clear yet. And it sounds like you have a very clear vision, right? Of where
we do,
what it can be. And that's cool. I think we need more people like you stepping up. And, we mentioned, 4 really, really smart, you, Eric Goodman and Kelly Starrett and Jane Fitzgerald, like they're all creating change, through ultimately solid fundamentals. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Right. Which is like, and good philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And a good approach to people. And, you'll find that word authentic being thrown around for all the brightest minds, right? That's a very powerful thing is like, it's okay if you're just starting off as a fitness professional to mimic, right? Because you haven't got your own thing yet, right? Maybe you don't fully understand what you're doing. So you mimic. You're like, okay, well, I saw the guy do this and it's a 90 degree and I'm going to retest it here. And, that's what I did. And then I started to understand it. And then I started to be more relaxed and I started working with people and being my true self. And that's when things started to really go well.
Totally.
But so, all right, man, where do people stay on top of what you're doing? How do people do that?
You can find us at Paragon Athletics on Instagram. We put a ton of information up there. We share, and it's funny because I'm starting to see more and more of it kind of come back to us in other posts. And I share a little different content, sort of more high-minded stuff that's a lot of more context on Facebook at Paragon Athletics. And some of that stuff is kind of heady. And my wife's always telling me, don't put that up. Nobody's interested, but I think people are interested.
The right people.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So, and those are probably the best places to find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. It's really exciting. I'm excited. I think it's
me too, man.
Time for a change. And, the fitness profession overall is hungry for change.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really want to evolve and rise. And all these key terms that I keep seeing with influencers in the industry is, rise is a very common word. Like, let's rise up and let's be something.
Yeah. There's a big change coming. It's going to be good for everybody, I think. So,
it's exciting times. Right on, man. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon, man. Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone, and I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So, number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I ask you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So, I know it takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So, please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel, our Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes, but thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.